How many times have you got in the vehicle and went to the destination, but you went under protest, not happy that you had to go at all? This is Barry Phillips, a 10-minute Torah. We are in day 1 of Beshalach, when he sent. This is talking about when Pharaoh sent Israel out of Mitzrayim. Let's begin today in Exodus Remote, chapter number 13 and verse number 17. And it came to be when Pharaoh had let the people go that Elohim did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, though that was nearer. For Elohim said, lest the people regret when they see fighting and return to Mitzrayim. Lest the people regret. I struggle with the idea that there would be any regret in leaving Mitzrayim. Yet we know, having studied the storyline previous times, that there are multiple occasions where Israel as a people said it had been better for us if we just stayed right where we were. Why are we out here in this wilderness? And before we can get out of this Torah portion good, we're going to see that they very quickly changed their mind and said, we told you we should have never left. Such is the fickle, fragile state of the human heart, motivation, and mind. And so we read this, and the way that the text states it, it would seem as if it's Pharaoh that is pulling the strings here. But let's remember, Yah has been hardening this man's heart, playing his own heart against him and against his people. It would have made much more sense, a much better strategy to have let Israel go much sooner. But he got hardened in his heart, and he got this attitude, and Yah prompted it, promoted it, encouraged it. It wasn't as if he had no decision to make. Yah knew his decisions and urged him, let's say, in those decisions to play this man like a puppet. And so as we look at this, let's analyze one aspect of it, and that is that the people had to be sent out. You would think it would be reasonable to assume that after all of the devastation that had been taking place in Mitzrayim, the water had become undrinkable. They had been plagued with insects and frogs and gnats and pestilence. There had been a smothering darkness, hail that broke apart, and fire ran across the ground and destroyed the crops in the field. You would think, with the economy wrecked, with the people living in abject fear and just terror, that somebody else in the family would die. Pharaoh had been brought down to his knees. The government was crippled. The economy was wrecked. The land was devastated. The substructure was no longer able to support anything. This nation had experienced extreme devastation. Why would anybody stay? It would be as if a tidal wave hit New York City and wiped out all of the skyline, that there were no buildings left. The subways had been flooded. It was all gone. The people are all gone. They were swept out to sea. It's a horrific, imaginative scenario, yet if we could conceive of such a thing, why would anybody stay in the rubble and the mass destruction? Why would anybody say, I would rather stay here than to move somewhere and have hope of a different life? The door is open for Israel to leave, and yet they had to be sent out. Now we know that a vast majority, according to rabbinical commentary, they chose to stay. But even those who did leave, they did not necessarily go out running through the gates and kicking up their heels and hollering, "Hooray, we're free at last." It is this title word, Bashalach, or Bashalach, that we get an understanding of Shalach. It's the word that is used back in Genesis, Bereshit, chapter number 3, and in verse number 23. So Yahweh Elohim sent him out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. That word sent is Shalach, but it is described and defined for us in the next verse, and he drove the man out. So when Yah sent him out, Shalach, the way that he sent him out was to drive him out. If we go to chapter 12, Bereshit chapter 12, in verse number 20, Avram and his wife had been down in Mitzrayim, and it did not go well for Pharaoh. And it says in verse 20, and Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. Get out of here. It's not been good for us while you've been here. We're ready for you to leave. Now, if we go over to Genesis, Bereshit, chapter number 19, I want us to look at chapter 19 in verse 20 first, or 29, excuse me. Chapter 19, verse 29 says, thus it came to be when Elohim destroyed the cities of the plain that Elohim remembered Abraham and sent Lot out in the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt. So again, there is this word Shalach where Lot is sent out. But then we go back to verse 16 to see how this sending out took place. It says, and while he loitered, the men, that is the messengers, the angels of Yah, took hold of his hand and his wife's hand and the hands of his two daughters, Yahweh having compassion on him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. So again, the action of Shalach, in this case, Bashalach, when he sent, it gives us, in previous uses, an understanding that it's not just, hey, you can go now, move along, and let's get going, but rather it was a compelling, a driving, an urging, may we even say a forcing of the people out. Which begs a second question. Why? Why would they leave reluctantly? What is it that would compel them to even consider an option of staying? I have one answer. Maybe you have more. And it might be just this. They may have considered that since Mitzrayim was now weakened and that Pharaoh had publicly brought Pharaoh down to his knees, they may have thought, we win. Hey, we won. So now that we're basking in victory, why leave now when we can return to the days of prosperity and laughter and security? It's all good again. It's a similar mindset is going on in our own nation right now. There are many who feel like, because of a change in administration, hey, we won. Do not become fascinated. Do not become overly attached to this present world, no matter who's in charge. The second part of that question is why leave for the totally unknown experience of the wilderness and then have to resettle the ancient land when we can have it good right here, right now? Colossians chapter 3, verse 1. If then you were raised with Messiah, seek the matters which are above where Messiah is seated on the right hand of Elohim. Mind the matters above and not those on the earth. Be careful where you set your affections, Let's stay in tune with Yah's plan and go with what He wants. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Until then, shalom.